The waterline is the line where the hull of a ship meets the surface of the water, in concept or reality. Specifically, it is also the name of a special marking, also known as an international load line, Plimsoll line and waterline, that indicates the draft of the ship and the legal limit to which a ship may be loaded for specific water types and temperatures in order to safely maintain buoyancy, particularly with regard to the hazard of waves that may arise. Temperature affects the level, because warm water provides less buoyancy, being less dense than cold water, as does salinity, because fresh water is less dense than seawater. For vessels with displacement hulls, the hull speed is determined by, among other things, the waterline length. In a sailing boat, the waterline length can change significantly as the boat heels, and can dynamically affect the speed of the boat. The waterline can also refer to any line on a ship's hull that is parallel to the water's surface when the ship is afloat in a normal position. Hence, all waterlines are one class of ship's lines, used to denote the shape of a hull in naval architecture plans. In aircraft design, the term waterline refers to the vertical location of items on the aircraft. This is the z-axis of an XYZ coordinate system, the other two axes being the fuselage station and buttock line. Purpose. The purpose of a load line is to ensure that a ship has sufficient freeboard and thus sufficient reserve buoyancy. The freeboard of commercial vessels is measured between the lowest point of the uppermost continuous deck side and the waterline, and this must not be less than the freeboard marked on the load line certificate issued to the ship. All commercial ships, other than in exceptional circumstances, have a load line symbol painted amidships on each side of the ship. This symbol is also permanently marked, so that if the paint wears off it remains visible. The load line makes it easy for anyone to determine if a ship has been overloaded. The exact location of the load line is calculated and verified by a classification society, and that society issues the relevant certificates. This marking was invented in 1876 by Samuel Plimsoll. History. The first official loading regulations are thought to date back to maritime legislation originating with the Kingdom of Crete in 2500 BC, when vessels were required to pass loading and maintenance inspections. Roman sea regulations also contained similar regulations. In the Middle Ages, the Venetian Republic, the city of Genoa, and a Hanseatic League required ships to show a load line. In the case of Venice, this was a cross marked on the side of the ship, and of Genoa 3 horizontal lines. The first 19th-century loading recommendations were introduced by Lloyd's Register of British and Foreign Shipping in 1835, following discussions among shipowners, shippers and underwriters. Lloyd's recommended freeboards as a function of the depth of the hold. These recommendations, used extensively until 1880, became known as Lloyd's Rule. In the 1860s, after increased loss of ships due to overloading, a British MP, Samuel Plimsoll, took up the load line cause. A Royal Commission on Unseaworthy Ships was established in 1872, and in 1876 the United Kingdom Merchant Shipping Act made the load line mark compulsory, although the positioning of the mark was not fixed by law until 1894. In 1906, laws were passed requiring foreign ships visiting British ports to be marked with a load line. It was not until 1930 that there was international agreement for universal application of load line regulations. In 1966, the International Convention on Load Lines was concluded in London, which re-examined and amended the 1930 rules. The 1966 convention has has since seen amendments in 1971, 1975, 1979, 1983, 1995 and 2003, none of which have entered into force. Subdivision load line marks. Passenger ships having spaces which are adapted for the accommodation of passengers and the carriage of cargo alternatively may have one or more additional load line marks corresponding to the subdivision drafts approved for the alternative conditions. These marks show P1 for the principal passenger condition, and P2, P3, etc. for the alternative conditions. However, in no case is any subdivision load line mark placed above the deepest load line in salt water.